Hello, Fuse Nation. My name is Alex Fuse, the host of Fusion News. Today is January 22nd, 2018. I am the host of this show. And before I introduce my next guest on tonight's show, are you a subscriber of Fusion News? And if not, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button right now to join the Fuse Nation. And when we hit 600 subscribers, we are almost there. I will be giving away 2 New York Yankee regular season tickets, so stay tuned for that. Next guest on tonight's show, Jesse Agler, the voice and the radio broadcaster for the San Diego Padres, is joining me on the phone now. Jesse, how are we doing today?
Alex, doing great, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. So busy MLB offseason. I know it's been on and off. It seems like we have Giancarlo Stanton in New York, and the Padres have made a few moves getting Chase Headley from the Yankees. And how do you feel like this offseason has been for the Padres?
Active for the Padres. I know the story around all of baseball is that there isn't much happening and that, everybody is concerned about the number of free agents who are still out there. But the Padres have been one of the most active, if not the most active teams in baseball this year. Now, they're kind of still waiting on Eric Hosmer, but I don't think they're the ones holding that up. I mean, they've got a contract offer out there. They have pretty widely reported. I think they're just kind of waiting on his decision, or perhaps it's a negotiating tactic by his representation, to drag this thing on a little longer. But they locked up Brad Hand, their all-star relief pitcher, to an extension. You mentioned that trade with the Yankees. They also traded Yangervis Solarte to the Toronto Blue Jays. So they've been wheeling and dealing, and I don't think it's any secret, here in town what the Padres' plan is. They're trying to line this thing up, for real-time competition. If not in 2019, then in 2020. They've got a tremendous farm system, probably one of the best 2 or 3 in all of baseball. I think in Baseball America's top 100 prospect list that came out this week, they had 6 guys in the top 100. So they're very, very excited about their future, and it should be a fun few years here in San Diego.
Definitely. So if the Padres do sign Eric Hosmer, how do you think that will affect this team in 2018?
It's really interesting. And I think when the news came out that the Padres had a firm, formal offer on the table for him, there was definitely some, I don't want to say confusion, but some intrigue. They've got a guy, an all-star, by the way, Will Myers, who plays first base, who has currently the biggest contract in franchise history. Now, if the Hosmer deal happens, that'll be the new biggest contract in franchise history. So you assume, I guess, at that point, Myers shifts his way into a corner outfield spot because, they've got some intriguing young people there, but, none of whom are as established as Myers. And, that would be the expectation, I think. If the Hosmer deal did go down, the other thing that isn't much of a secret is why they like Hosmer. It isn't just, the numbers in the baseball and the home runs. And I know he's had, peaks and valleys over the last few years, but he's still a very productive baseball player, particularly defensively at first base. And, the Padres are about as ground ball heavy a pitching rotation as exists in baseball. So, any help you can get defensively on the infield is nice. But he's also one of those, clubhouse character guys, and everybody talks about that. And being such a young team and with so many young guys on the way, I think the Padres place a very real value on a guy like Hosmer being in the clubhouse around those guys. He went through it in Kansas City. He won it all in Kansas City. And I think they find that to be an important part of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel like this Padres team is going to perform in 2018? I know they struggled the past few seasons. So how do you feel like this Padres team is going to do?
Yeah, I think it's just, continuous improvement, so to speak. They took one step forward last year. They brought in Freddie Galvis to play shortstop this year. That'll be a big upgrade for them, particularly from the defensive standpoint. They're developing these young pitchers. You're going to start to see some of these big-time prospects maybe dip their toes in the big league waters, certainly in spring training, if not, during the regular season at some point. It's not about wins or losses, I think, yet for this team. That probably changes next year and certainly the year after that. They're looking to develop these young guys and to kind of figure out who they've got. What they refer to as waves of talent coming up from the system. And that first wave hit last year. Austin Hedges behind the plate, Hunter Renfroe in right field, Manuel Margot in center field. This year is as much about those guys kind of taking the next step forwards in their development as anything else. And then, starting to get a look at that next crew of guys coming up because, it's easy to sit here and say, hey, they've got all these great shortstop prospects, but eventually the cream has to rise to the top. You got to figure out who you've got and who you want to go to battle with, so to speak, over the course of a long major league season. So that's kind of where they're at right now, and it should be a really, really fun few years coming up.
I know. As a lot of Yankee fans over here in upstate New York and Mets fans, so we don't really get to see a lot of Padres over here, but hopefully the Padres should have a next very exciting few seasons. And we'll switch gears now and talk some NFL football. The New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles are headed to the Super Bowl. What was your reaction on both of those games yesterday and this upcoming Super Bowl matchup between those two teams?
I'm always excited for the Super Bowl, and I think that's the same as most people, sort of depending upon. It doesn't even matter who's playing in the game. One of my first thoughts yesterday, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one to think this, was, man, I feel bad for the Saints. You know, I mean, that fluky, weird ending against Minnesota, and I can only imagine Drew Brees or whoever else, sitting on their couch watching that game, or maybe not, by the way. It might be tough to watch if you're one of those guys, and thinking, boy, we would have given the Eagles a lot more than the Vikings were able to in that game. So, I kind of grew up a Dolphin fan / Giant fan. So this Super Bowl matchup is actually about as bad as it gets from my own, personal bias standpoint or whatever as a fan growing up. But, a couple of my really good friends, two of my best friends really are both Eagles fans. I always enjoy their misery, but obviously the Patriots are a tough team to root for if you're not an actual Patriot fan. I'll do what any other, person would want, which is to root for a good game. We got that last year. I found myself pulling for the Falcons just because it'd be fun to see the Patriots lose. But what the Patriots were able to do in that game last year was astounding and incredibly entertaining and historic. So that's where I come down on it from a rooting standpoint. I'm just interested in entertaining football and hopefully a good game. And the other thing is, as soon as that Super Bowl ends, I know that I'll be in Peoria, Arizona, very, very soon for spring training, and that's always exciting.
Mm-hmm. I'll be heading down for a few spring training games in Tampa, Florida, for the Yankees down in Florida. So I'm looking forward to that. So are you saying that the Eagles are going to beat the Patriots this year in the Super Bowl, or you hope the Eagles defeat the Patriots?
Saying I hope for a good game, and I think this is one of those where I genuinely might not know who I want to win until the game starts, and I'm sort of watching it, just from a fan standpoint. But no, I'm not saying that. I'm not making any predictions. I'm not telling you who I want to win because I frankly don't even know yet.
All right, sounds good. And before I wrap up this Fusion News interview, what made you get into the career of sports broadcasting? I know this is a career that I've always wanted to get into. I was just telling someone earlier today, I got grounded in middle school for 2 weeks and I couldn't watch any TV, so I started listening to John Sterling, who was a Yankee radio announcer, and that's when I fell in love with baseball. Did you fall in love with baseball and want to become a sports broadcaster?
Yeah, I mean it was pretty early for me. Just growing up where I did, we didn't have a team in South Florida until the Marlins in '93, and I was already 11 years old then. So I kind of developed myself as a Met fan at that point, growing up because my dad was a huge Met fan, and we got the Met games on TV and on the radio in South Florida prior to the Marlins existing. So it was kind of easy to follow the team. 1980s standpoint. Obviously no internet or anything like that, but we had TV, we had radio. They were covered, pretty extensively down there. So that was nice. Pretty good Met teams in the 80s. So it was kind of easy to fall in love with that. And, watching those games on TV and listening on radio with my dad, I mean, it was just immediately apparent to me that was the greatest job in the world. You got to go to all the games, you got to talk about them. I mean, what else could you want to do? And I mean, I can frankly remember being probably 9 years old, if not younger, and turning the sound down on the TV and pretending to be an announcer. And I loved watching Ralph Kiner and Tim McCarver mostly in those days on TV, and listening to Bob Murphy on the radio. I think my experience was to baseball fans all over the country. You're trying to sneak the radio under your pillow at night and listen as long as you can before your parents notice it. And, now I guess kids are doing that on their smartphones, but, I imagine there's still plenty of kids around the country who do that every night during the baseball season. And, I fell in love with the storytelling aspect of it, the history of baseball. And like I said, it was clear to me, even as a little kid, that there was no better job in the world. And so lucky that I've kind of ended up in a situation where I get to do it.
Mm-hmm. Who has been one of your favorite announcers you've gotten to work with over the years, and what is the best advice you've ever received from one of them?
It's a good question. I mean, I've worked with some phenomenal people. I mean, I got to know Dick Enberg these last couple of years in San Diego, and I was very sad that he just passed away. We didn't work together, but I'd fill in for him on TV, and obviously around each other, plenty. An incredible opportunity to get to talk shop with him, which he was nice enough to do with me. My current partner on radio, Ted Leitner, is a legend here in San Diego, just a unique broadcaster. He actually reminds me a lot of John Sterling, in that there's just not anybody else who sounds like him. And I don't know that I've ever asked Ted for advice, but I've learned a lot just watching him and listening to him and hearing his stories. And he's a tremendous, tremendous partner. Don Orsillo, the longtime Red Sox TV voice, who's now with the Padres on Fox Sports Sports San Diego. He and I have become pretty close friends, and he's a great resource, in terms of bouncing stuff off of him, whether it's on-air stuff or just sort of, getting through the grind of a major league season. And here, in 2006 and 2007, I hosted the pre and post game shows for the Marlins radio network, and Dave Van Horn, Hall of Fame radio announcer then for the Marlins, is somebody I've kept in very close touch with over the years, and somebody I admire and have just the ultimate respect for. Roxy Bernstein was his partner for those 2 years, and Roxy and I have stayed close. And another guy who's always been there, for career advice and that kind of thing. So I've been very, very lucky. Everywhere I've ever been, I've been around supportive people, intelligent people, and people who really wanted to help make a positive difference in my career.
That's awesome. So last question before I wrap up this Fusion News interview. It's the 25th anniversary of Monday Night Raw tonight in Manhattan, New York, and I've been a wrestling fan the past 7 years. I've pretty much watched every single Monday Night Raw ever since. And of course, with the WWE Network for just $9.99 a month, I have gotten to enjoy a lot more Raw memories. Jesse, have you ever watched wrestling? And if you have, what would be maybe your favorite moment from Monday Night Raw growing up?
Oh man, yeah, I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid. I probably got away from it in 8th or 9th grade. So you got to go back, to the mid 90s, basically the last time I watched consistently. But I did. I remember Monday Night Raw with my 2 little sisters. We'd watch, every chance we got. And as I recall, it ended at 9 o'clock, which was like past one of my little sister's bedtimes. But like my dad was nice enough to make an exception, that they were able to stay up and watch with me, on Monday nights to watch wrestling. So we were all very, very into it for a while. It's been a long time. One of my best wrestling memories, and I don't think it was Raw. In fact, I know it wasn't because it was a daytime thing. But I remember there was the big, and I kind of looked like a sumo wrestler, Yokozuna. Nobody had ever body slammed him before, and they did a big, special from I think the Intrepid in New York, and to see if anybody could body slam him, which had never been done before. And that whole ordeal, I just remember being mesmerized by it. I guess it was in the early mid '90s. I can't remember now, but I'm sure that clip is out there. And yeah, I was a huge wrestling fan. 25 years of Monday Night Raw is pretty wild. Those. Over those years, haven't watched it in a very long time. So if I tuned in tonight, I would be very confused by all the storylines and the characters. But it's great entertainment. There's no doubt.
Well, I mean, you got Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels, and D-Generation X all are going to be in attendance for tonight's Raw. So maybe you won't be so confused.
He was a big favorite, so that's good. I'm glad that he's still there. Stone Cold came a little bit after my time. Mm-hmm. I remember I had friends that were big Stone Cold fans, but I was already done with it at that point. But yeah, those are great memories. Maybe I'll tune in.
Thank you again for coming on my show tonight. And where can the Fuse Nation and Padres fans follow you on Twitter and follow along with you the rest of the offseason? Like you said earlier, there's a few weeks away from spring training.
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram, both are at Jesse Agler, and over the course of the season, you can hear us on the Padres Radio Network with the MLB.com and Bat app if you're not here local in San Diego. And, I fill in as well on television on Fox Sports San Diego. And always great to chat with new baseball fans, no matter what team they follow, no matter where they are.
Thank you again for coming on tonight. All right, Fuse Nation, just heard it from Jesse Agler, who is a San Diego Padres broadcaster and radio announcer. It's always good to talk to other announcers on this show. And, of course, comment below what your favorite wrestling moment is throughout the years. 25 years for a weekly running episode is a lot of years. So be sure to tune in tonight at 8 p.m. on the USA Network to see your former, favorite, and current WWE superstars. It's going to be a great show. Thanks for watching, and I will be seeing you very soon. Be a subscriber.